This morning's talk I've titled The Other Appraisal. And what I'm trying to point out with that title is we have the first appraisal, which is what we think of ourselves, how we're doing, how we're not doing, how we're not getting it, how we're getting it, how we're moving ahead, how we're being less emotional, how we're being more emotional, how we're becoming more agreeable, how we're becoming less agreeable. All these evaluations or appraisals of how things are going, how we're doing, looking at and comparing, contrasting this year to last year to 15 minutes ago. And then we're looking around for all kinds of rationales, reasons why we're feeling better. It's not enough to just feel. We have to have, why do we feel that? Why do we feel this? Why are we feeling that? Why aren't we feeling this? Why don't I feel? It's just a constant merry-go-round. And don't misunderstand. I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing that. You'll find if you listen to what I say very much, you'll find that I'm always stressing what? What am I stressing?
Not doing it unless you have to.
Well, I do that, but what am I stressing? Awareness. Yes, thank you. Awareness. What the space in which anything occurs in any of the sense fields. And so this is also true with appraising or evaluating anything that arises. Something arises, we do something with it. And what I'm encouraging you to do is be aware of that function or of that reaction or of that addition, because it is an addition. You are doing some math. I often say, another way of saying don't do anything unless you have to, I say don't do the math. Don't do any math. Whatever happens, someone comes in the room, don't add on your ideas, your opinions, your projections, your fortune telling on top of it. Don't do it. And when I say don't do it, you may do it anyway. You may do it kind of impulsively or out of habituation or out of just the weight of having done that, habit of doing it over and over and over. We keep judging, evaluating, condemning, accepting, rejecting. We make ourselves into a bundle of problems, some more painful than losing at Scrabble, which is not fun, as you know. So the other appraisal is we take that same device, that same mechanism, that same, is it good? Is it bad? Do I like it? Is it working? Is it not working? And we point it towards other people. The other appraisal. How are they doing? Why are they doing that? Are they doing it this way? Is this good? Is this bad? Are they doing okay? Are they doing what? Are they self-centered? Are they egotistical? Are they operating out of self-aggrandizement, the fancy way of talking about it? And what am I here to tell you? It's none of your business. It's none of your business what other people are doing or not doing. There's no way that you can see fundamentally what is happening in someone else's karma. I've been looking at this for a long time. And if I can't do it, you're probably not going to be able to do it either. So knock it off. How's that? And when I say that, you may not be able to. That's the thing we have to really have respect for our minds, in that we try to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt in anything that's occurring so that we can see more clearly who we are and how we're operating rather than jump in and start mixing it up based on preconceptions, based on projections, based on guesswork, based on fortune telling. So the idea is to, in this particular path, this path of meditation, is to strengthen your ability to see more clearly what is occurring in front of you, what is occurring inside of you, to see it. So when, I'm not saying you should ignore the other appraisal, just be aware that you do that. If you're aware that you do that, that seems to be enough, because the actual fundamental reality, which is already the case, the ultimate reality, which is already absolutely true, not relatively, is already happening, is already there, is already just what it is. And the less you do to meddle with that based on your guesswork, based on your motivation to get to be better, get to be smarter, get to be. The more likely it is that what will begin to arise in your mind stream is the actual situation as it is. In other words, the truth. And what did the Buddha see when he awoke? I'll tell you. According to the teachings, I wasn't there. Maybe he saw a bunch of gophers. But what it says in the teachings, that he saw that everything is dependently arisen, that nothing comes from its own side as an independent guy or girl or thing or entity or consciousness. It's not that there isn't a separation going on. Everywhere we look, we see separation. Everything is separated from it. We're all separated. If I put a jacket on, you don't get warm. Unless you're crazy, in which case you might. But then that same kind of image is often used in the Zen tradition to confound the linear logic of ego or self-centeredness, and actually comes out and says, firewood, as Dogen said in the 13th century, firewood does not become ash. And of course, or maybe not of course, we look and we say, yes, it does. Why would he say such a ridiculous thing? Of course, if you have firewood and you burn it, it becomes ash. So what's going on there? What is he actually saying? What is he pointing out to us as a Dharma teacher? What is he pointing out to us as someone who sees the truth without a doubt? Without a doubt. Not a belief system, but sees the truth. Firewood does not become ash. Firewood is firewood. Ash is ash. One of the ways that you can experience this situation yourself, if you work at it, is to see that even though you have a memory of what happened, yesterday or last night, and you have a projection or an idea or an imagination or a dream about what's going to happen this afternoon or tomorrow, there's only this. This is it. It's always now. It just sometimes it's wearing a green shirt, and sometimes it's wearing a funny colored lizard type of shirt.
Where?
What?
Where?
What?
I don't see any lizards.
Look in the mirror. Those are lizard stripes on that shirt. Were you here in 1952?
No.
I was.
They call these lizard stripes?
No. So now you've been instructed. So to emphasize it one more time is it's the idea of an appraisal or an evaluation or a judgment, to use a more stronger word, judging. We have this knee-jerk reaction to, since we're judging ourselves, we get kind of tired out, so we start judging other people. We shut down or ignore what's happening in ourselves so that we can judge others. We see it all the time. We see people who are completely missing the complete open dimension of their that is their life. They're missing the actual enjoyment of being a living being. Of course, there's suffering also, we know, but there's an open dimension which there's just fundamentally not being at war with anything. And that's not something that ego or self-centeredness can accomplish. You can't actually accomplish that. So awareness. You can't really see awareness. You may not even know if you're aware. But if those kinds of questions are coming up or those kinds of inquiry are coming up, then you're getting worn, because that's what it feels like. It feels like less and less and less to hang on to. Less reference points. Maybe some, but not many. So what I'm suggesting here is not so much that you stop doing that or stop judging or stop appraising yourself or others. But bring awareness to that so you see the extent to which you have an idea about other people based on judgment, based on preconceptions, all of it untrue. You have questions at this point? Lisa?
Sometimes it's easier to see not the judgments we're placing on others, but the judgments others are placing on us. What do we do with that when we see it?
So you can see that somebody's doing that to you. Somebody you're close to, because they're telling you. Is that what you meant? Like someone is saying, you should stop playing with swords. You could hurt yourself. It might poke your eye out. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Or else, you're so brave to do that kind of thing, or whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Don't do anything with it. Both of those are misunderstandings based on the belief, the grasping, the positionality that we're separate from each other, and that one person can win and one person can fail. It's not that there isn't a relative success and failure, just like there's a relative life and death. But who you actually are transcends all of that. And until that is realized, your job will be to be aware of the way you get defensive, be aware of the way you get aggressive, be aware of the way that anything arises, you do something with it. If you're clear and there's just awareness, then your functioning is more like a sky rather than a cloud. Sky doesn't do anything. The sky doesn't miss anything. Jesse's writing that down. She wrote down clouds don't win. That's what she paraphrased me. Clouds are bad.
Sky good.
Sky good. Sky king. Cloud servants. Is that helpful? Or you could go further into that if you wanted to.
No, I just, I see myself reacting to the things and, I see it, but it doesn't stop the reaction sometimes. Puffing up when somebody says something nice or, the anger or pushing back when somebody says something irritating.
That's exactly what this talk is about. And so what I'm saying, this is the hard thing, is to actually don't fuel that. And the way you stop fueling that is you see where it gets its fuel from. And it gets its fuel from a belief that there is a solid person that can win or lose, so that needs defending. Everything is kind of partial evidence around that keeps collecting and collecting, that you're not doing well, that you need defending, that they shouldn't talk to you that way. Don't they realize that you're whatever? They just, then we go back the other way and we start evaluating them. Look at the dumb stuff they do. Who are they to talk? It's circular. You can do that all day long. And then those people who go along with you and say, yeah, no kidding. I can't believe they said that about you. This is what we call a friend. Right? It's one of our friends. But then if somebody comes along and says, well, it seems like they were maybe confused about you, or were confused themselves. They were just kind of spinning around and you just happened to get some of the overflow. That might also be a friend on a different level. And then there's the other person that would just listen to you talk about what that person did to you and not say anything. And that's probably your Dharma sister. Because that person would know better than to meddle with you. The only person that's probably going to meddle with you is your teacher, if you give him or her permission. Which doesn't mean, yeah, go ahead and teach me. I'm ready. I mean, you actually are ready to have someone give you instruction. Yes, sir. Kevin.
Is it possible or at all necessary to look into our conditioning or our behavioral conditioning and to see
psychology?
Well, to see some type of evidence that promotes a certain way of acting based on something that arises, some kind of experience with another person, or is that just more storytelling and takes away from awareness of the present moment?
Those are my two choices.
Oh, look through all the choices that you have in your.
What's your basic question?
How important is it to look at why we act the way we act?
Well, the Buddhist teachings the Buddha's already asked that question, because we want things to be different than they are, desire. So once we know that, then we don't want to spend a lot of time rooting around trying to find out the specific problem and try to, douse it, put it out, turn it off, find the off switch. That's endless. And that's based on feeling there's a separate being who could possibly control things or get a handle on it or be more sane. This is called materialism. And in this case, spiritual materialism. Trying to get better, using spiritual techniques to get to be a more enlightened guy. Less of this and less. Whereas the true spiritual path is to realize that there isn't anyone in the first place. There is no solid being there. Everything that comes forth that looks like Kevin is empty of itself. And so the teachings are encouraging us as soon as we can to look at the relative, look at the provisional teachings. Life is suffering, the cause of desire, the goal is the path, and the ending is discipline the mind, Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna. And also that everything is dependently arisen. We have to actually begin to see that, to have enough inspiration to stretch the awareness in such a way that we begin to see that it's a hidden underlying assumption, just a belief without even being inspected, that we're a solid being. And ego, of course, when ego is combined or laminated to the awareness and starts to look at itself in the mirror, it starts to freak out and say, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to do this. I think I'm going to go practice Tai Chi, or I think I'm going to go do something else, or I'm going to find another teacher. I'm going to find another teaching. I'm going to quit studying this altogether. What's life about, man? I'm just going to have a good time. Hell with this meditation stuff. So coming back to your question, of course, there are causes and conditions that this happens and this causes that and that causes this, and this pushes on that, which is relative truth. But the problem with it is it's always partial. The evidence of what we see, we only see a little bit of that situation rather than the big picture. And then we go in there and emphasize that little part, trying to stop this from causing that, or blame it, or think that you can actually correct that little thing and have a better life or make more money, be more popular, be more sane. More.
So are causal conditions also considered karma in the Buddhist tradition?
Yeah, it's karma, cause and effect. Karma is Sanskrit for action, so anything that's moving from one place to the other. And what's being said in the teachings, as this old man understands it, is just look at it. That's all you have to do. Because eventually you will see that it's not separate, as the Buddha did. You have to do what the Buddha did. You don't have to believe what he said. In fact, and in fiction, you shouldn't believe what anybody says. And you also shouldn't disbelieve what anybody says. That might be a little bit more difficult teeter-totter to balance. Sheldon.
Is believing that there's a solid self, is that actually just ignoring that it's not real, that the solid self is not real?
Paraphrase yourself.
I don't know how to paraphrase that.
Well, what did you mean by that? Does that help? How do you mean? Everybody look at Sheldon, because that'll help.
Belief is actually ignorance. We're actually,
Yeah,
believing is actually ignoring.
it certainly is. Thank you, sir. Anytime you believe anything, you're solidifying it, fixating on it, and saying this is true, as opposed to this over there that is false. And it's not that isn't showing up that way. It does, but we get attached to it. We want to lock down on something because if we find something is true, then that it reinforces the identity as a believer, someone who believes something. The whole society, culture operates on this all the time. We have conversations where we'll say to each other, well, what do you think? What do you believe? What's your opinion? As if there's some kind of validity to an opinion. It's like saying, what kind of stupid thoughts do you have? Stupid meaning only descriptive, not judgmental. I really love everyone. You know I mean that. You believe I mean that? It's amazing. If you understand what I'm saying here, please, even with your ego-centeredness, self-centeredness, whatever, just consider. You don't have to believe anything or disbelieve anything. You don't have to take a position on anything. Let the position take you. If it needs to be a position, it'll take you. It'll be like, I'm sleepy. That's not a belief. You don't have to believe there's gravity to keep them floating into space. Or do you? Is that a hidden belief? What if we gave up that belief and, oh my gosh, I blew it. I did what Sokuzan said, and now I'm floating into space. I was one of those, one out of every 15 people. If they don't believe in gravity, then it stops working. Oh no. I wish I wasn't born a Virgo. I mean, the causes and conditions about any given thing are so incredibly vast that if you see how complicated it really is, you'll realize the incredible value of gravity and of just the feeling of your feet on the floor, the feeling of your clothes. You'll realize how valuable this is to just be here in this room. Firewood does not become ash. Ash is ash, yes.
Christy from Elk Rapids.
I know her.
Her young son Ian is listening in.
Hi, Ian.
He has a question.
I bet he does.
He wants to know why kids are bullies sometimes.
You know, Ian, I think kids, there's probably lots of explanations, but I would say that some kids are bullies because they're afraid of being, maybe even afraid of being bullied themselves. And so they might think it's safer for them to lash out at others. So that may be, there's probably lots of reasons for that. You probably have some ideas about that yourself. I think the why part of it is even in that situation is circular. In other words, if you say why, then there'll be a because, and then you say why, then there's another because, and we don't really get anywhere. We have the illusion, or it feels like it's making sense. Feels like it, but the best thing to look at with a bully, someone who is being a bully, is you stay in your senses. Don't forget how you're feeling, how your clothes feel, what that bully is doing, how they look. And it might be possible that you could, if you knew that person who was acting like a bully, it might be possible that you could find out some way of addressing them or talking to them in an area that they are where you could communicate with them. It could be risky, and they might continue to bully you. So I think it's because they're afraid, and so they want to cover that up with being pushing you around or acting tough, feeling good because they know they can scare you. We could talk more about that when I see you again. I have more to say about that, but it would be specifically to you. Further questions? Sheldon.
Why is it so difficult to see that we believe things?
So you could talk about it different ways, but we're not persistent about it. We have other agendas, getting this, getting that, pushing this away, increasing this, decreasing that in just everyday situation. So it's important to spend time on the cushion. This is why we have meditation, why we have cushions in here, why we have a Zendo, why we have a meditation hall. So we can see more clearly the way in which we grasp at some things and push other things away. Is that helpful? Sit a lot, really. One of the ways you can work with that is to sit down and create it's kind of an artificial space of not doing much. Some people think meditation is about getting into a zoning out, getting into another space that feels comfortable. And it may be, there may be something to that. But what seems to be important is if you, anyone here in this room or anyone listening to me or on the internet, if you sit down, have all of your senses open, sit very still, and take the attitude of just observing what's happening, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions, your memories, that what starts to get stronger is not the thinking process. That starts to get, as I sometimes say, muscle bound when we're constantly trying to figure everything out and get ahead and push some things out of the way and get to the other things. But if you sit down and put the whole apparatus in neutral, you might have a chance, there's no guarantee, you might have to do a lot of it, that you'll begin to see the way in which you deceive yourself and how you've been deceiving yourself your whole life. And if you begin to see the way in which you're doing that, you will also, if you have the courage, you have the intention and have the sincerity to continue to see, you want the truth more than anything else. You want to know for yourself. You want to know for yourself. Then you'll begin to see the way belief operates for you personally. May not be comfortable. More? Other questions here? Questions out there in TV land?
Question from Shane out in California. He says, what's the way we deceive yourself?
I'm not clear. Is he,
What's the way?
should I answer Siri or should I answer him?
Ourself. What's the way we deceive ourselves?
Okay, find out. One of the ways we deceive ourselves is we buy into, if there's an emotion arises, if you have an emotion like a fear, and this is might be a little bit sophisticated or complicated for Ian or younger people in general, but it still can be understood. One of the ways we do this is we believe there's some person having the feeling. We think there's some kind of independent entity, a guy or a girl, person who has the feeling of fear, who has the feeling of anything, any feeling you can name, even love, fear, hatred. There's a separation there between the feeling itself. A way that is sometimes said in the teaching is fear is feeling fear. And to think about that, it's like, well, that's not going to make any sense. There's no way. Fear isn't that making up some other situation? But it is a way of talking about the belief, the uninspected belief of separation in a way that helps you approach that. Fundamentally, there isn't any fear. It just looks like there is. It's very convincing. It's like any emotion that is triggered by something else. I'm trying to think of something to make a good example. Like, let's say jealousy would be one. Say you thought your partner was seeing someone else, but then so you have this feeling of jealousy arise, and then you realize that, that wasn't true at all, that was a misunderstanding about someone they were talking to that was a friend of theirs, that, say, someone they had known in high school or something. I don't know. It could get very complicated, and I don't want to go into detail about it so much, but seeing that things are one way and having it get triggered, and then realizing that it wasn't true at all. So was there somebody feeling fear there, or jealousy? Was there someone actually having that? And if they had it, then where is it now? It's like the old Zen stories, which some of you have probably heard, is the guy comes to, and I don't remember which one of the Zen masters it was, he comes to the teacher and says, I have a terrible temper. I'm just terribly angry all the time. I don't know what's wrong. And the teaching person, the Roshi or Zen master said, well, bring me that anger. And he said, the student says, I can't find it. And the teacher says, there, I've solved that for you. And this is firewood, does not become ash. Understanding that something that looks like it turns into something else, we're not getting rid of relative truth, but we're taking relative truth a step further off the 10-foot, 100-foot pole. We're going out into space with that understanding. You have a question?
Oh, no.
You're scratching your neck? You have to be very careful about scratching in here. I will see you. I don't miss much, yes.
A question from Shara out in Taipei, over in Taipei.
Shara, over in Taipei. It must be midnight in Taipei.
She asks, how do I work with feeling exposed? The immediate action is a need to explain myself.
So feeling exposed is the negative side is feeling exposed, Shara. But the positive part of that is this is how it feels to begin to uncover ego, or uncover the preposterous idea that there's actually a solid being there. We're not saying there isn't a body here. It's not ridiculous. We're not saying there isn't nerve endings, but all of that gets together. And the technical part of it in Buddhism is called the 5 skandhas: form, feeling, perception, concept, or memory, and consciousness, the 6 sense fields. That all that gets together and says, me, my stuff, I. And then it projects onto others, and then takes the inventory of others too, the other appraisal. Appraising of ourselves, appraising others. So the downside, Shara, doesn't feel very good, but the upside of that is that's how it begins to feel to expose or uncover ego. We feel more and more exposed. And I would say, functioning as your teacher, keep going. Sit, allow that exposure to, do it for all beings. Do it for others. Have a willingness to expose yourself, because you know that the only way you can fundamentally help others is if you're nobody. Have to be a grain of sand. If you're somebody, you're always going to have an axe to grind somewhere with somebody. You're going to want to win. You're going to want to be ahead. You're going to want to get noticed. You'll try to look like somebody who's helpful. People spend their whole life trying to look like helpful people. Yes.
Another question from Shane out in California. How does fear prevent us from seeing who we are?
We add to the emotion of fear by thinking there's someone that is afraid, or we do a lot of backfilling. Excuse me. We add on to that fear instead of just having the fear be what's in the Tibetan tradition is called rangjung, or self-existing. And the fear arises just fear. It's not fear that I'm having. So if that didn't satisfy your question, then you should paraphrase yourself. Yes, sir.
Is there some kind of difference to be considered with the fear that is self-arising and fear that arises based on some type of action in front of us or cause or condition in front of us, like a lion chasing us, for instance?
Well, the difference is is it a real lion?
Sure. Yeah, real lion.
Real lion.
Out in the Sahara.
Okay, what's your question? Got it.
Well, what is that? The difference of the self-arising fear, which seems to have no causality, no material causality, and the fear that comes from the need to protect oneself from danger.
Yeah, that's just the natural identity with the body, But it's very simple. It's not sitting in some kind of it's not some kind of feeling that you don't deserve to be eaten by a lion. What is this lion thinking? Who invented the lion in the first place? Where do lions come from? Why are there large entities with teeth and hungry? It just gets very complicated. It's just a matter of levels. It's still the same situation. It's just that it's thicker. I don't mean sicker. I mean thicker.
How do you mean thicker? That primary.
Be careful. It's just a matter of density.
The texture of the fear that arises from trying to protect the body.
Yeah, it's still unreal. It has a relative reality, but the ultimate sense, there would be complete fearlessness. But it doesn't mean you would sit there and let the tiger eat you. Although there are stories, I think, in the Jataka tales where the Bodhisattva, or one who is intent upon becoming a Buddha, feeds himself or herself to a tiger. So good luck. He may be tested. Sheldon.
That same thing is true for all feelings that arise.
What same thing?
There's not necessarily a cause. They just, or that there's not even a real thing.
There's not a first cause. You can't find a first cause. Everything is dependent on everything else. So, but we wanting to have our own identity validated, we're the person who is mistreated. We're the person who's in trouble. We're the person who is getting a raw deal. We tend to go into that part of the partial evidence that supports our trip. You do it. I do it. This is how I can't talk about it unless I do it. So what's different? How can I talk about this and still sit up here and talk to you guys about it? And instead of you seeing what a fool I am and you walk out, instead you're all listening to me. Of course, maybe some of you want to leave, but I'll get upset.
You know that there's not actually somebody.
It's seeing what most people think are two things I see are not separate. You think you're over there and I'm over here. I'm not accusing you of anything. Just it's obvious to me by your question. More?
Why isn't it obvious to me?
It will be if you're inspired by that and you want to know that and you're inspired by these teachings that have been around for 2,500 years. It's just a path. It's not the only path, but it's a really powerful one and an ancient path. The 4 vowels that we repeated this morning. Just those 4 vowels. You're actually saying those 4 vowels. Vowing to be with all things, to save all beings. Vowing to work with emotions, see what they actually are, to actually end them. Vowing to go through any Dharma gate that comes up, whatever feeling, whatever thing, anything that happens is a Dharma gate. Everything. Until it's not. Until you are the Dharma gate. Which doesn't mean you will stop eating Cheerios for breakfast. Jesse.
Did you just say vowing to end all emotions?
I probably lied.
Okay.
It's to work with them in such a way that you're going to work with them. You're going to see what they're actually empty of an emoter. If that's a word, emotion, emoter. You got to be somebody to emote them, or not. Yes.
What about the global fear that seems to be thick,
Yeah.
dense, particularly in our political scene and remembrance of what happened 15 years ago today in New York?
Yeah.
The fear really seems to get ramped up, and it seems to be owned by these entities somehow. What's the best way to work with that?
It's just your mind. Just work with your mind. I know it's if we watch any of that, it's very seductive to want to get into. I can feel it. I look at that and I realize how little was actually done, that no one investigated anything. So it's very easy to get drawn into that and realize the extent of the ignorance, and the extent of the passion, aggression, the extent that the 3 poisons are rampant in the world. Warfare is just a really, really big, dense ego. And the people who are involved in that really believe that. They feel that this is true. That we need to kill other people in order to be safe.
I'm just looking how to untangle, like you talk about fear has no owner, so to speak. But what is it about the mind that grasps the ownership, wants it to? I don't know, I'm just.
What's the question?
What makes it so seductive?
Makes what so seductive?
The wanting to buy into fear.
We want to be safe. We're afraid that something's going to get us, or something's going to happen, or we're going to lose, or we'll look bad. And that's based on thinking, feeling, assuming that there's a solid being who can look bad or who can be damaged. Who you are is it's impossible to as it is said in other traditions, what is real is not threatened. Who you actually are, your actual understanding, if you realize who you are, which in our tradition is called Buddhahood or Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha. There's all kinds of fancy words for it. But it basically is just realizing nothing is separate. If there's nothing is separate, then you might as well be a sand in the Mojave Desert. Sensu.
If we see that who we actually are cannot be threatened,
Yeah.
will relative fears or other emotions subside?
No. Sorry. What will subside?
The feeler.
Yeah, separation will subside. You'll see that everything is it's called, when it's really understood, it's called compassion. Compassion is not just some kind of wimpy feeling sorry for people. Compassion is practically invisible. It's impractically invisible also, besides being practically invisible. You can't see it, you can't find it. It can't be created. It's already the case. It's always been the case. Yes.
A follow-up question from Shane. If you can become aware of the backfilling or the adding to fear, where does our true nature arise in all of this?
Keep looking at that until it wears out. Look at your stupid ideas about things and don't add to them. Don't try to get rid of stupid ideas. It's like beating your children. Don't do that. Be with all things, including your stupidity. You get rid of it too early, then you think you've accomplished something, and then we're back into spiritual materialism, and you're back being reborn as in a God realm or a jealous God realm or one of those other rooms in the house. Sheldon.
What you were just saying about we cling to fear because we're afraid that something's going to get us. Basically.
Yes.
Is that the same thing that Joe Cam Trump was saying when he said that ego is a paranoid insurance company?
Yes. Yes, in Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, I think Trungpa Rinpoche says ego is this paranoid insurance policy. It's like, I'm buying into this just in case. If something bad happens, I can save my butt. And he couldn't talk about that unless he experienced it himself, been through that kind of experience himself. Anyone who talks about that, who is just reading it, might also be true. They might be inspired by those words, even though they haven't seen it themselves. But there's something that resonates there. So when we hear those words, I know when I read Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism in 1973, I remember thinking, I need to meet this guy. And at the same time, I thought that I was terrified because I wanted to meet him and get the advantage of these teachings, but I didn't want him seeing how crazy I was. So he helped me by just not wearing robes, wearing a golf shirt, drinking sake, smoking cigarettes, and having lots of bushy black hair. He was very cute. So I can approach this guy. I was intimidated by monks, but I wasn't intimidated by him until I got too close and I started to get burned. Other questions? Online? Very good. Thank you so much.
We'll dedicate the merit in the back of your chant books. You'll find the dedication. Also, remember that we have our donation boxes out in the hallway. We have one person who listens in and sends us $1 every month. So keep sending your dollars.
May merit this country into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Ji Ho San Shi Shi Hu Shi Son Mu Sa Mo Ko Sa Mo Ko Ja Ho Ro Mi. The 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna, Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokokoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.